This is The Gorge. This is the podcast where my friend Sara and I gorge ourselves on overanalyzing a game or game-related topic. This week, we're talking about Horizon Zero Dawn for the PlayStation 4.
Exclusively for the PlayStation 4. How about them apples, Microsoft? Damn, though, right?
Holy crap. This game is going to be winning awards. Like, people are going to be talking about this game for a while. Like, this is one of the like 2017 like juggernaut games.
Yeah, and it kind of like I didn't really pay attention to it when it was announced back at E3. Like, I was just kind of like, oh, Horizon Zero Dawn, that's a nonsense title. Then I moved on.
Remember, we actually did the Gorge where we saw that and we're like, oh, this looks like Sony's Zelda.
Yeah, and
like,
then
and we were like, that's pretty cool. Yeah, and then it came out and it's like,
I don't even know what convinced me to play it. I don't even know, like, maybe it was just the trailers or the hype around it. But I went in and I bought it, and I ended up really, really enjoying it, like, way more than I even expected to enjoy it. Like, I thought, oh, this would be a fun little, like, open-world time-waster game, kind of like a Far Cry kind of experience, because, like, Far Cry is my total guilty pleasure video game franchise. And it ended up being so much more.
I really, really expected this to be way more like Far Cry or Fallout, which is like, oh, it's a third-person open-world game. Mm-hmm. You'll run around, you'll do quests, and it'll be very, because that first trailer had that great aesthetic. It had the cool robots, and you got to see the protagonist doing all this cool stuff and trap setting and all that. And you're like, oh, this is really impressive, and this looks like it'll be fun to play and just like chill out with. And then it ends up being this phenomenally well done game,
and very well. That's really what it is that Horizon is just shockingly well put together, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's what really kind of blows my mind. Like, I knew it was going to be good. It looked like a good video game. You see it, you go, oh yeah, that could definitely be good. And then you play it and you just think, this is great.
It's, you thought it would be good in the way that, like, Far Cry is good, or like a Call of Duty is good, is that, yes, this game is well produced, and it is functional, and it plays really well, but you didn't expect it to do anything, like, remarkable or earth-shattering, and then it does!
Yeah, because it is probably the most incredibly beautiful game I have ever seen in my entire life. I mean, like, it's up there. I can't really think of, like, at least another game I've played on my PS4. I've kind of been dabbling in Bloodborne. Poorly, by the way. And Bloodborne kind of is on that same tier, but Bloodborne is carried by its aesthetics, which is all, gothic high architecture and stuff like that, but that's another podcast for another day. But Horizon is just beautiful, and I know we weren't going to get immediately to the visuals of this game, but I mean, that really is the first thing you think of when you talk about Horizon, is just wow, right?
We can just go straight into the presentation of it, because, like, I broke up our notes into 3 categories, because, like, usually we only spend, like, 20 to half hour on, like, the story and the like the gameplay and the aesthetic and stuff, and then we dive into the story. Like, this game does a really good job of breaking up all 3 of those points: gameplay, presentation, and story. Like, they're all equally good.
Yeah, but I think the thing that is going to catch most people's eyes, just from videos and screenshots and all of that stuff. I mean, again, screenshots are a major function of this game, because Guerrilla is just like, hey, we made a beautiful game, let's make sure the whole world knows it. The presentation and look of this game is definitely its biggest selling point. You see Horizon has such a good calm, even when, like, I'm fighting Thunderjaws in the most desperate of circumstances. It has the most beautifully calming atmosphere of any game I've played in a long time. Just the wandering around in Horizon feels so good.
they gave us the photo mode, which is like absolutely like game does it better than any other game with photo mode.
It's a gift.
Like it's like I've never taken a bad screenshot in photo mode.
No, never. You
like,
can just take the most beautiful. I joked with you once. It's basically create your own desktop.
Yeah, like I have like 4 or 5 desktops in my cycler now that are all just screenshots I took of Horizon.
Exactly, because they are amazing. The game
because like they're not like, oh, I took this picture and blew it up to high resolution. Like those look like go to the Horizon website and download these wallpapers, you know?
Exactly, like these are official screenshots because the game has just even the most simple of moments are incredibly cinematic. I posted hey, shameless shilling. I posted one on Twitter a few weeks back. That was a shot of of an abandoned street that has just been totally overgrown. It has the red grass and like these super old rusted street lamps and stuff, and it's just the most beautiful shot. And I just, when I kind of turned the camera and looked at it, I saw it and I just thought, this is beautiful. It is so beautiful, and just exploring feels so calming to not even, it is such a good kind of sit around and veg out and just kind of walk around game, you know?
Mm-hmm. Like, this game's post-apocalyptic aesthetic is without a doubt the best I've ever seen since The Last of Us.
Because except for one thing in the ending, which we won't get to, for the most part, the game acknowledges, unlike, other games, I'm talking about you, Bethesda, that 1,000 years is a long time, you know? Yeah. There is basically nothing left of the world before in Horizon's world, because that's after 1,000 years, after 200 years, Bethesda, there wouldn't be a lot left. After 1,000 years, it's pretty much exactly what you see is what would be left. Rusted old rafters, just the most basic steel parts of buildings, the occasional car that just wasn't exposed to the elements for too much, But there are not a lot of buildings of the old world, finger quotes, anywhere in Horizon. There are a handful in what would have been at the time major population centers, and that is it.
There's no, you are not going into any buildings that are like mostly intact. Like they're all there's nothing that has 4 walls.
Yeah, nothing. There's nothing that still has a roof, basically. You know, there's a few skyscrapers still standing, but they are appropriately. You feel like if you breathed funny, they would fall over. You know? Which is what you want. This is a pretty good representation of what the world after people would look like, and it is just. I mean, it is breathtaking to me to just. I see it, and just thinking about it, I want to go back and play more because it's so peaceful. I keep going back to that. It's hard to kind of quantify why it is that way, why I see it, and I just think like, I can just take a breath and just walk around. Even with robots breathing down my neck. At this point, I'm so overpowered. I'm like, Watcher, fuck you,
Yeah, exactly.
You're a Watcher. What are you going to do to me?
And also not even just the outdoor aesthetic, which is also which is beautiful. It's beautiful. It's without a doubt. It's absolutely gorgeous. And but even the interior parts, like the facilities that you go into,
I know.
That whole aesthetic, the way they design their future tech, and it's all sleek and holographic and clean looking. It's like, this is so perfect, because the only thing I can compare it to is Fallout, which is very.
The opposite direction.
Yeah, it is very clunky and, 50s aesthetic, of course. But, the juxtaposition of seeing this super sleek, minimalized tech completely overgrown by, not irrational, but, sporadic, random nature is, so perfectly jarring.
It is so interesting. It's such a good kind of way to show how far gone the old world really is. There really is not a lot left of it, and to have these last little bastions of the metal world being slowly overgrown and taken back by nature, the facility that Aloy falls into when she's a kid, the handful of facilities you go to in the main plot, which we're not going to spoil just yet, all of those are just... They are old and run down. They feel more like graves, and I love that there are not a lot of big... There's really only 1 or 2 combat sections in all of the old world facilities, yes. And I love that. That's
my favorite part, because, like, whenever you're playing a game like this that has, like, a great scenery or aesthetic, you really want to enjoy it, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
And it gets to the point where, like, a lot of open world games do this, where it's like, okay, you are in exploring mode. Like, right. We're going to put you in this area, and it's your job to, like, kind of wander around and feel it off, and we're going to show off all of our cool assets. Mm-hmm. You really don't want to put enemies in there, because that just distracts. You know, you're. It's so annoying when, like, I'm going down there and I'm scanning, like, data pads, and I'm seeing holograms, and I'm reading text. When I'm doing that, that's all I want to be doing.
Yeah, I don't want to be interrupted by combat, because at that point, my brain is in, like, exploration and investigation mode. It's in a mode of, well, let's absorb all of this information and put the pieces together and figure out what happened. You don't want to be interrupted by combat, and for the most part, Horizon does that very well. There's one section in the main plot. There's really only one section, though. And then... Well, there's that one part, I think, in Maker's End, but that's at the after you've done all of your exploring and all of your stuff.
Yeah.
Then it's like, hey, combat section. But before that is just exploration. It's just absorbing all of this information that's being thrown at you about the old world. And that's what I want. I don't want to have to be dealing with shooting bad guys and handling all this stuff, while also trying to take note of where all of these data pads are, so that afterwards I can have to go scan them and figure out what I just was supposed to be reading, you know?
Right, yeah, because when you're exploring and you're getting all this information, you're reading all these logs and, like, listening to these projections and recordings, and, like, you want to absorb that, because they're all so interesting. We'll get into story stuff later, but, like, they're all so interesting that you want to think about them while you're wandering. And you don't want to go, oh shit, there's an enemy, I have to take out this group here now. You don't want that. You want to be in that zone, that, like, melancholy zone of, God, these people are all going to die.
Right, and Horizon mostly handles it well. There's one point in the Horizon, in the Zero Dawn facility, that they've surrounded you with data pads, and you still have to fight dudes, and it's really such, like, a jarring, like, no, I don't want to be doing this right now. But then the next combat section in that same area is like, here's your combat section. There's basically no plot anything except for maybe 1 or 2 data pads. So handle all these dudes and then get back to exploring. Like, that's how I want it to be. I don't want to have, like, all of this information around me, and I'm like, I gotta fight these dudes until I can actually go do the stuff I'm really interested in, because we mentioned it in the notes, human combat in this game is such bullshit.
Yeah.
Man-to-man combat in this game sucks. It sucks.
Yeah, it is, and I'll touch on that, because I have a lot to say about that.
Right.
But, like, I just want to get back, like, I want to wrap everything about presentation, because, like, it's so good. And, like, the whole focus being your HUD is, like,
oh man, right?
Get the fuck out of here, all other HUDs in any other game. Like, the focus is it forever. The only other one I can think of that's as cool is in Human Revolution.
Yeah.
When you play the opening without a HUD.
Is really good.
When you play the opening without a HUD at all, and then you go back to playing as Jensen, like, after his surgery, and then you see the HUD, and you're like, oh shit, it's him.
I love when games come up with reasons to give you a reason to have a HUD, even if it is such a little, you know, like, oh, you have a focus and that's why you have your HUD. I love it. Like, yes, come up with some bullshit reason why I can know exactly all of my stats and stuff, you know? I think probably my favorite thing in Horizon, and God, I wish every single video game on the PlayStation 4 would use this. I wish Persona 5 had used it. I wish Bloodborne would use it. I'm about to start playing Nier. I wish it would use it. The contextual HUD, where it's not visible at all until you actually until you actually touch or just brush the touchpad on the PS4 controller.
Yes!
Every single game should use that, because that is the best way to go about it. I don't want to see my objectives or the map or whatever until I actually need them. Otherwise, like, leave me alone. Give me the most bare bones minimum information, and then just leave me the fuck alone. Persona 5 especially needed that, because it was always filling your vision with so much fucking bullshit. I didn't need any of that,
sure.
and Horizons is so good to just have, I can just tap the controller, and it's like, oh, here's all of your fucking, I'm suddenly losing my words here. Like, all of your objectives, there we go. I want
your
that.
objectives. And...
I want that. I want to have it, like... I don't want it on screen at all time, and I think that's such a good way to kind of balance it, because otherwise, like, a too minimal HUD, and you don't know what's going on.
Right.
But, like, a very, you kind of hide it away until you actually need it is so good. Thank you, Gorilla.
And also, I mean, I love the sound it makes when you bring it up.
Oh my god, right? Talk about good sound effects.
When you go into focus mode and it makes that, like whistling...
Wee! Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
That, like, whirring sound. Like, it's so good.
It's so good. It's... Honestly, I know that some people don't like Detective Vision or whatever that all these games do. I think Horizon does it really well, because it's not really telling you... I think my major problem with the game is its over-reliance on tracking things in side quests, because you're not really tracking things, you're just following a glowing line,
Yeah. A lot of the side quests have the obligatory, okay, well, scan the footprints and then just follow the little purple avatar man.
Right, which is not great. But otherwise, I think that's the right way to do it, to kind of show you, on machines where their weak points are and stuff like that. And then, that's a good way to kind of know, well, that's where I need to be shooting, or that's what it's a good way to kind of plan on the fly as you go. And otherwise, it's just really smart. It looks cool. It's a good way to kind of let you know how to plan in advance what you want to do. It lets you know where people are. It's like Dark Vision in Dishonored, but not quite as elaborate, because it doesn't show you where people are walking and stuff like that. I just really like the focus. I love its aesthetic. The first time you get it in-game, and, the little... grid lines pop up around baby Aloy, you're like, this is really cool. I didn't use a lot of its functions, though. Like, the whole keeping track of where an enemy's walking path is.
I didn't use that a lot, but I absolutely would, like, okay, if I feel like, okay, here's a bandit camp, I'm gonna stand outside the door, I'm gonna focus up, and I'm going to mark everyone I see. And then I will know, like, I will have a general idea of where everyone is.
Yeah, for sure, which is cool. God bless this. God bless the look and aesthetic of this game. It is so well designed. Just, I want this art book really, really badly. I might have to buy it.
They used just enough of, like, the scavenging old world tech, because, like guys will be wearing, like, armor that clearly comes from the machines,
Right.
But they don't, like, do it so much that it looks corny, kind of like how Mad Max has guys wearing football pads with spikes. Like, there's none of that here. It's all just, like, they're all very practical about it.
Well, because it makes kind of sense. They're wearing, trophies from kills, or they're wearing, like, fashionable pieces and stuff like that. I like that every tribe has its own distinct look. The Nora have more of a wildernessy kind of thing. The Banuk have, like, blue tones and tubing and chords because they're more in tune with machines. The Karja are the most advanced civilization of the bunch, so of course they have the fanciest clothes in the largest city. The Azuram wear big metal chunks because they're metal workers in general. I just think it's a really... when I came into this game, I did not even remotely anticipate the amount of work that would go into differentiating each tribe,
Yeah. Yeah,
I honestly didn't even expect other tribes. Like when we met Aaron and the Karja during the Nora proving, I was like, oh, that's cool. There's other tribes. I didn't expect it to be that big of a deal.
Yeah,
you know.
Mm-hmm. They really went way above what I think everyone expected of this game.
Yeah, 100%. I really did not think we would be getting a giant hub city like Meridian. I thought, there'll be a few little places like in the Nora lands. There's a few tiny little settlements here and there with some people talking shit about Aloy and some merchants. I thought most of the cities in the game would be like that. I did not expect a place like Meridian. Oh my god, yeah. Meridian. The first time I saw Meridian was just breathtaking, and I'm pretty sure I took about 20 screenshots of my approach to Meridian. Because it is tremendous. It really does give you the sense that you're in a completely different world when you finally see Meridian, and it's built on a mesa, and it has these giant, elaborate, amazing elevators going up and down from it. The amount of architecture that's gone into it, and the fact that it just feels so unique in comparison to anything you've ever seen.
And it's not repurposed.
No!
Like, it's not like Diamond City, where we took the stadium and we converted it into a city. Like, you go there, and that's all new work. That's all carved from stone by stone workers.
Built by hands! Like, that has been built by human hands in the last 700 and something years since the apocalypse. It is amazing. It is such a breath of fresh air in a world like Fallout, which is a bunch of repurposed, it's 200 years later and we're still living in Fenway Park,
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's so cool, and I love, like, there's so much craft that went into making sure everything looked impressive. And
different and unique. The handful of Oseram cities we see are completely different. There's 2 Oseram towns in the game. There's Pitchcliff, and there's another one whose name I'm suddenly forgetting. But there's 2. And they're completely different from any Karja settlement and any Nora settlement. We didn't get to see any Banuk settlements, but that's what the Frozen North is for.
Yeah.
So we'll probably get to see them there, which is exciting. And they even made like little tiny tribes that, the Tenakth, I think is what they're called. You only see one member of the Tenakth in the whole game. And she's one of those people you hunt for the prison warden lady.
Yeah.
The way with like the blue paint and stuff. So they made a whole other tribe, and if you go look on the wiki, they have like really extensively designed out what these people's like their skin painting looks like, what kind of clothes they wear. They've extensively designed this out along with a bunch of other just little one-off tribes. There's one other whose name I am going to forget, and I am really sorry about that. But you only meet 1 or 2 other members of that tribe too. But they've been designed. They have a specific aesthetic that differentiates them from the Nora, the Oseram, and the Banuk, and the Tenakth. That is 5 different groups of people who are completely distinctive. That is amazing. That is so much more work than I expected.
Yeah.
And
like, literally the only thing I have against this game's presentation, the only, like, negative I can give it against it, is that the cutscene animations between dialogue is a little stiff.
Great. Not
it
great.
Is.
Yeah.
It is very much camera A, camera B, and they're gonna, like...
Yeah.
Aloy's gonna wave her hands around a little bit, and then the other guy is gonna wave his hands a little bit.
Yeah.
And
there's a few canned moments where it has slightly more elaborate animations, like the part where Silence is like after the whole thing with after you find out what Silence helped found, I guess, if we're still not spoiling anything. There's like one part where it shows Silence pacing back and forth, and it's a completely new animation, and it's like, boy, you guys could have done with maybe about 20 more of those.
You can always tell when you're in like an actually crafted cutscene when Aloy switches to her default outfit.
That's so true. Yeah, I think it's kind of like the part... Like, anytime you find a dying guy, and he's just kind of, like, laying on the ground, and then just, like, keels over out of nowhere.
He's, like, in that, like, Skyrim, like, kneeling pose, you know?
And then he just kind of drops dead sometimes, and you're like, oh, you probably could have afforded a few more animations, guys.
Yeah. You could have spent a bit more time.
A little bit more time. That's it. But that's it. Really it, though. Like, other than that, it's fine. Game looks beautiful. It's so good that Kojima is going to use the Daisina engine for Death Stranding. So that's really all you need to know.
Which is fucking awesome.
And that's why there are Death Stranding Easter eggs in the game. And I found all 3! God. Yay!
I completely forgot about that. I'm going to have to play that, like, tomorrow or something and track them down.
I found all 3! It's really fun. I don't actually know what finding them gets you. I think it just gets you one of those random boxes. Like, you take it to a special vendor in Meridian and you get a box of just, randomized garbage. Which is fine, but we do need to have a conversation, Gorilla, about your quest rewards. You could do a little bit more. Basically, give me an apartment, guys.
Yeah. Because, like, I would end up with just stacks of treasure boxes that I couldn't, like, take because I was full.
Yeah, I was constantly being rewarded with more blast traps, and I'm like, I don't need any more. Yeah. I am at my limit of blast traps, guys. So, but I mean, that's such a little minor quibble. That's a nitpick. Mm-hmm. That's the nittiest of picks. But still, why not? I really enjoy this game, so why not nitpick? Yeah. That's what we do.
We can switch to gameplay now, I think, because that's
I love it! I love this game. Feels so good to play,
It really does. Like, I have a lot of good things to say, and a few negative things, but, like, primarily, like, holy shit. What immediately jumps out to me, first off, of all of this, is that, like, they finally found a way to make climbing, like, interesting, because games like Uncharted or Tomb Raider, it's always like, okay, go to the left, and then jump across this thing, and then keep going, and then go up, and then jump again, and then jump, and then keep going left. This Horizon does it really good. It's all just hold the analog stick.
I don't know, I have a bit of a problem with modern games kind of removing the skill aspect of jumping from spot to spot, because it does remove the skill. If all I have to do is hold the analog stick, then why couldn't I just walk up here? That's the way I kind of see it. Basically, I think any game that it has a climbing mechanic like that should always implement a Breath of the Wild / Shadow of the Colossus grip meter. Because that one little thing always changes. Otherwise it just kind of feels like, why couldn't I just walk up here?
Well, for one thing, Breath of the Wild completely changed the game, where it's like, hey, just climb it.
Yeah, you can just climb anything in Breath of the Wild. You can just climb it.
Just climb it. Like,
have fun.
Yeah, there's no, like, here is the white spot that you can jump on. It's just, hey, climb it.
Yeah, we need to have a conversation, Gorilla, right now, you and me, about your little climbable white spots, because I'm half fucking blind. And there were times in this game where I just could not see the white spots because I need contacts and I don't have any, which is partially my own fault, but partially just because, like, the lighting would turn that little climbable white or yellow spot into something my eyes could never see. No. It definitely needed either some kind of grip meter, because, like I said, otherwise you feel like, why couldn't I just walk up here? Or, I think most open world games are going to have to now implement Breath of the Wild's climb almost anything.
Like, Breath of the Wild, like, out of everything that Breath of the Wild is going to do to the gaming industry, like, you're going to see a lot of, you can just climb it.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be, I mean, Breath of the Wild goes a little far, for sure. You don't have to be able to climb everything. But man, just rock walls and stuff like that, I should be, there's certain rock walls in Horizon that makes sense that you can't climb because you're in the desert and it has those very sheer, clean rock walls that, like, no, you'd never be able to find a handhold. But any of these normal kind of rocky looking things that I can't go up, and there's a lot of mesas in this game that there's just no way to get up there, and I'm always like, I want to go to there. You should just let me climb them. Let me climb them. I think more games should just, like, not Fallout, the other one, Far Cry 4, had a really dope grappling hook mechanic that I could never use. Speaking of which, hey, Horizon, I have a grappling hook. Why can't I use it to go up?
Yeah, that was, like, one of the other things I didn't mention in my notes, but, like, we use it to go down. Like, there's no reason Aloy shouldn't be able to use it to go up things.
Yeah, why can't I chuck the hook up there and snag something and then walk up the side of a cliff face? Because that was really cool in Far Cry, and it's a lot of fun, and you definitely could have been able to implement that in Horizon. Which, I mean, again, that's kind of a nitpicky thing, but it's fun. Let me have more ways to be mobile in your game. You know?
They have a functional way of getting up, and like I said, I do appreciate that you can just hold the analog stick because it simplifies it to a point where, like, you can just, like, okay, well, where do I go next? I'll just rotate the analog stick slowly, and Aloy will go there.
Yeah.
So, like, their solution was to make it as quick and easy as possible so I didn't have to do it.
Right.
Which is not a good solution.
Right.
But it was better than the alternative, which is the way that, like, Tomb Raider does it, which is like, okay, well, because this game doesn't do the thing that, like, Uncharted and Tomb Raider do, where it's like, hop from this pillar to the other, so you have to hold the analog stick, like, the opposite direction that they're facing.
Right.
And you can never, like, register that right, because they're a 3D character and you're trying to manipulate it on a 2D plane.
Right.
And you have to wait for the character to, like, to do their, like, half turn.
Yeah.
To be like, okay, now I can jump.
Now you can do the thing. Yeah, I think Aloy has a very nice, snappy way of controlling.
Dude, the one where, like, she jumps straight up and then wall hops at an angle?
Yes, so cool.
That's the cool one!
Aloy's so cool. We'll get into that in a minute, but Aloy's so fucking cool. But yeah, I think they could have found a few ways to kind of tweak the climbing system to make it a little bit more gamey. I know, I feel like sometimes saying it's more video gamey is like a dirty word in this industry, but listen, this is a video game, and I want some kind of test of skill. I don't want to just, point the analog stick. Shadow of the Colossus did it right, and that was like 10, 12 years ago now. It was a long time ago. So yeah. But otherwise, I think the way climbing feels is a lot of fun. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It looks and feels more fun than it actually is. Again, Horizon's presentation is what saves it a lot of the time. Is that even though you really have no danger of falling, it just looks so cool and dangerous that you still get a little bit agoraphobic, you know? Mm-hmm. Is that it? Or is it acrophobic where you're afraid of heights? Agoraphobic. Phobic is heights.
Oh, okay. So, yeah, that's just what it feels like. You're up there, and you're hanging off of a ledge, and especially in some of the old world places where you have to go way high up, and you're hanging, it's a long way down. It feels really cool. The game does a good job of making you feel cool, like a total badass.
Yeah.
Which is what's really important. I've said that a lot on this podcast.
And nothing does that better than the combat.
Ooh, boy, the combat with machines!
There are so many enemy varieties in this game.
Oh, man, right?
That are all unique challenges.
I was a good chunk into this game and still coming across monsters that I didn't expect. Like the fucking, the digging kind of ones whose names...
Yeah!
Rock Breakers! The Rock Breakers. I did not expect the rock. They kind of snuck up on me one day, and I'm like, oh, you're a new big thing, okay. And boy, fuck fighting those things.
Yeah.
God, those are the worst of all of them. But it was still finding ways to surprise me. I didn't know the tramplers were in the game. So my first time I came across a huge herd of tramplers, and they're just these giant bull-looking monsters wandering across the plains. You're just... It is the coolest fucking thing.
You get a thing where it's like, you progress past the gates, and the first thing it's like they make a big deal of is that, like, oh shit, there's it's like the tiger ones.
The stalkers.
Yeah, the stalker was like, oh shit, it's a stalker.
Yeah.
Like, the game's like... And
no, the sawtooth is the...
Sawtooth.
Okay, yeah, there's 3 different types of, like, big cat-style ones. The stalkers are the ones that go invisible. The ravagers are ones that have the big gun. And then the sawtooth is just the first monster you fight outside of the Holy Land.
Like, it's always like, okay, well, here are some scrappers, here are some... Or not scrappers, some watchers, here are some...
You're right, scrappers. Those are the other types.
Yeah, here's a few little things, and you're like... Then the game is like, okay, go fight a sawtooth. And it's like, holy shit, this is a fucking sawtooth. And you're thinking, oh, God, I have to fight a robot tiger?
Right.
What can be better than... Sawtooths are fucking nothing.
So by the end of the game, I'm like, oh, look, a sawtooth. How easy.
By, like, 10 hours in, you're like, oh, it's just a sawtooth.
I can take him. But then there are these other things that replace it instead. The escalation of challenge is so good, because in the beginning, when you first get outside of the Nora lands and you're in, like, Karja territory, you can easily stumble across glint hawks and snap maws, things that are way outside of your competency level at the time, and you can beat them. I think that's the best part of Horizon, is that even at a low level, if you're smart and you play right and you play clever, you can kill a glint hawk, you can kill a snap maw. You don't have to be level 50 to take these things on without breaking a sweat. It helps, but if you are a low level, it is still completely within your scope to take out these higher level, bigger, harder hitting machines. You just probably don't want to, because it's really hard. I was on my way to Meridian, and I just stumbled across a handful of snap maws, and they destroyed me.
Yep, that's what happens really early on.
Yeah, but it was great.
Until you can get, gear and get different arrow types and whatever, and then you can actually start doing some damage. And I really think, and I really hope they fix this for the sequel, I don't think they went far enough with their weapon variety.
Oh, no, for sure. You can get a new type of bow and stuff like that from the Hunters Guild quests, but I hate challenge quests like that. I just don't, they're boring to me. I don't have a lot of fun. Kill 3 of this enemy type or whatever,
Yeah, or it's like, the one that I was just like, I decided that I'm not going to do it is one where it's tie up this rope machine and then shoot the component off its stomach.
Yeah, no.
In 3 minutes? Yeah, no, I'm not doing that, no.
Yeah, no, because the rope caster, as much as they used it in the trailers, the rope and trip casters are really not that fun to use. They're not...
No.
They require you being in an area where you can hang a rope, and a lot of this game is in wide open spaces where you can't.
Yeah.
So I never used them. Let me think. Nope, not once. Now that I think about it, the one time the game kind of made me use it as like a tutorial thing, and I was like, oh, okay. I do like that the tutorials in this game are optional. Like, all the weapon tutorials, you don't have to do them if you don't want to. And I was like, nah, I don't feel like it. So yeah, thanks for that, Horizon. Anytime a game does that, I always appreciate it. But yeah, so I didn't even fool with getting... Because you can get special hunting lodge type, bows and stuff like that. But I didn't want to. I didn't feel like going through that work. Like,
as much as, like, these machines are all unique and they all have different approaches to them, like, your actual ability to inflict damage on them is severely limited, and it would make sense And what kind of bums me out about this is that this game was kind of like advertised as being like, you're a hunter. Mm-hmm. You have a whole slew of gadgets at your disposal to take these things down. And a lot of the heavier battles, like against like Thunderjaws or the upgraded version of Glinthawks,
the Stormbirds.
Yeah, Stormbirds. They just turn into battles of attrition.
Yeah, I think the way the fights are paced out, you don't have a lot of time to... and I'm sure somebody will be like, get good. And you're probably right. I probably should get good. But you don't have a lot of time to react beyond... like, the game doesn't give you much opportunity because Aloy places traps really slowly.
Yeah, she has to stop in place and set them down, and then you can keep moving.
And I mean, I guess it's a thing. Now, I did once take out an entire herd of tramplers really early level because I set up a bunch of traps in an open area and then just lured them around them.
Yeah, and I mean, like... but
that feels really good.
But that's such a, situational event.
Yeah.
That you're never going to pull that off efficiently.
Yeah, I think...
and it's much easier to just snipe them with your bow.
Yeah, I think... like, Aloy's slide is a little too... because of you have to click with the right thumbstick. Aloy's slide is a little too hard to initiate. So you don't actually have a lot of mobility options in battle that would give you an opportunity to set up different kinds of strategies because of the fact that you're limited by the fact that Aloy's walk is slow, Aloy's run is slow, and Aloy's sprint is slow. All of those could have been sped up a little, or you could have just been given the grappling hook. You know, why can't I use the grappling hook to kind of get myself across an arena, that kind of thing, to give me a fourth mobility option.
What I ended up doing a lot of it once I got it is I would use the Tear Blaster. Mm-hmm. And my battles against big creatures would end up being use the Tear Blaster to strip off all of its as many weapons as it could and all of its armor plating, and then just run in circles and shoot it.
My big strat was Tear Blast, ammo for the sharpshot bow, and then sticky bombs for the blast bomb sling. Sticky bombs are super great because you can stick 8 of them on a thing at one time and they do a lot of damage. So, and those explosions can stagger even things like Deathbringers and Thunderjaws, which is amazing. So you can just stick it with as long as you stay moving and hit it constantly with sticky bombs. You can keep an upper hand that way. So I swear by the sticky bomb way of playing this game.
Like, what this game needed was one more weapon. Like, a heavy weapon that, had a high ammo cost. Like, it took a big chunk of resources to craft ammo. But you needed just something that would just hit hard. Right.
Yeah, it needed... I feel like
I thought the Rattler would be that, but the Rattler is not that.
No, the Rattler is not that.
It does very little amounts of damage, and then, you could just use your bow.
The Rattler is good for, that was the fourth weapon I always carried. I always carried 2 different types of bow, the Blast Sling and the Rattler. The Rattler is mostly good for inflicting shock on anything because it can help build, because an enemy only becomes officially inflicted with a status effect when that little bar over its head fills all the way, and once that bar is filled, then it's inflicted. The Rattler is really good for inflicting shock on an enemy quickly, but other than that, it's not great for inflicting damage. It's really it actually has a slower fire rate than I expected. So it's not even good for kind of like a suppression fire tactic, you know?
Yeah.
It's just kind of, I used it situationally. Of my 4 weapon loadout, it was the one I used the least. It was a very situational, I really need to disable this thing to keep it from moving for a little while so I can get up, so I can switch back to Blast Sling or give myself a breathing time, you know? So yeah, it's a little flawed. I wish there were more, types of the bow and the blast sling. There's really only like 4 bows in the whole game.
Yeah. What I really wish is that, like, for one thing, the stripping off of armor and everything is really cool.
Yes.
These bigger enemies have so many plates that you can tear off. And that you can reduce a Thunderjaw to just its, like, spread laser.
Which is amazing. I think one of the coolest things of this game, one of the best, probably other than the fact that it's beautiful, probably one of my favorite things about this game is the fact that these enemies react realistically to having their combat abilities removed. After a while, if you hit a sawtooth hard enough and you disable enough of its systems, it won't be able to even hit you because you've disoriented it so much that it can't track you. Stuff like that. I love that. That is so cool.
I just wish for, like, a lot of these bigger enemies they had went further with it. And it's like, once I strip off the armor of, like, a Thunderjaw, I should be able to snipe its legs until it becomes crippled.
Yeah, I wish you could cripple,
you know?
I wish you could cripple limbs.
Yeah, like, that. I think that's what it needed. It needed that one step further where you could just straight up, like, tear off limbs and reduce its mobility. Because, as far as I can tell, you can't really reduce the just flat mobility of any machine.
No, like I said, you can reduce its accuracy, and after a certain point, they'll be like staggering you around. They won't be able to charge you and that kind of thing. But you can't blow its legs off. You can't. Yeah. You can't keep it from moving at all. Which, God help me, I wish that was possible with stuff like a Stormbird. Maybe it is possible with a Stormbird, but those things are awful. But otherwise, no, I don't think there's a way to kind of slow them down from even moving, which is such a shame. Could have been maybe in 2. We'll see. Maybe in the
Inevitable 2. And, like, the other thing is that, like, it's just like there's a lot of things where it's like you could have just gone a little bit further. Like, for instance, the your ability to control, like, to override machines and ride them, that's not nearly as useful as it should have been.
Yeah, after you unlock, you can travel, or you can fast travel between fucking
campfires.
Thank you. You can fast travel between campfires, so why would I ever use a mount? The mounts, like, they can defend themselves, and they'll defend themselves with you on them, so it's kind of neat, but I don't know. I never use those mounts as much as the game kind of wanted me to use those mounts.
See, what would have been nice is that eventually you get the skill where it's like you can whistle and you'll call in a mount,
Right.
Like, you'll just call one in. You don't need to hack one.
Right.
You should have been able to upgrade that further to call in combat.
Yeah, like in Far Cry Primal, which is not a great game, but that is always that's a really cool thing in Far Cry Primal.
Because that feels like such like a natural step up, because you're talking about combat options, like that's it. You maybe not call in like a Snapjaw, right, but like call in a Sawtooth, call in a Scrapper.
Right.
Give us the ability to something that can like hit a little bit, a long leg, anything. That's just like you just call in one and it serves as mostly a distraction while you can, set up a trap or whatever.
Yeah, or, and have it be like if you call one in because Aloy has to whistle, your stealth cover is blown, Yeah. So now you can't be stealthy, but hey, here's this Scrapper or whatever tearing shit up and helping you kind of still be functional in the battlefield. Because, again, otherwise you kind of lose out on a way to be mobile. There are parts in this game where I can't avoid being hit just because of the way Aloy moves. She's too slow.
Yeah.
There's nothing you can really do about it unless you're just scrambling for cover constantly, which is maybe what the game wanted you to do. But even then, Aloy just moves kind of slowly sometimes. The fight with Red Maw in the Hunting Guild quest line is a good example. It's just impossible to avoid those attacks sometimes.
Yeah.
And so you don't feel like you're getting hit because of some stupid thing you did. You're being punished because of the way the game is just made, You're being hit because the game doesn't give you the option to not be hit. Right, exactly. And that's just kind of frustrating. I wish there was there were more ways to get around. I wish there were more ways to, you know, avoid all this fighting. But that said, I mean, we've been doing a little bit of bitching, but damn.
All this really boils down to is, like, what you have is good. It's just, when you match it up to the presentation of this game, and you match it up to the storytelling of this, like, they needed to take their combat to just that one slight step up.
Yeah, I think it's that old sandbox game problem of we're trying to do all of these things so well that obviously one aspect is going to suffer, and in this case, it was combat and gameplay.
Yeah, and the problem I have with this is that because what you do have tons of options, and you do have some pretty decent mobility, and you do have, like, the battles are still fun, and, like, they are tense, and you're sweating while you're fighting these things.
Right.
But it's like, when your game is advertised, and, like, the first trailer is just Aloy sliding around and laying traps, and, like, enemies reacting dynamically to her, when that's, like, your initial pitch, that's what sticks into players' heads, and that's what they were expecting when they boot it up.
Yeah. And it's a little... It's just frustrating, because it after a certain point, sometimes it feels like no matter how skilled you are, you can't avoid being hit, which is a thing that, again, the Soulsborne franchise has kind of started to kind of put in people's heads, is this idea of, if I am good enough at this game, I should not be getting hit at all. It should just be a matter of skill. But sometimes it just feels like these enemies cheese you, and there's nothing you can really do.
Well, yeah, I told you, like, while I was fighting a Thunderjaw, and I'm like, I swear to God, this thing can teleport, because as far as I could tell, he was on the other side of the canyon, and now he's on me.
Right, exactly. And it just kind of feels like, because of the way Aloy moves, there is sometimes no way to avoid being hit, because her sprint is really slow. I just feel like she's, like, walking through sand sometimes when she's sprinting. And the slide function is not that... Now, you can slow down time while sliding, which is cool, but I barely, if ever, used it. Because the sprinting is such a pain in the ass. Can we please just not... Can we get rid of the idea that you have to click any kind of thumbstick for mobility? Like, I hate clicking the thumbstick to have to sprint, because it sucks. No matter what, because the little thumbstick on the PS4 controller is not very responsive. It does not have a good, satisfying clicky click. It's kind of a squishy click, and it doesn't feel right. So don't use the fucking L3 to make me sprint. It sucks. But I mean, otherwise the game is. I mean, when you do well in combat,
it feels good.
It feels really good.
And you know what else feels good? And I kind of actually, now that in hindsight I more appreciate this more than a complaint. Like, compared to the AI and the ability of the machines, like, human AI is pathetic.
Boy, it sucks, right?
It is. But like, that's actually kind of good, because it lets me play around in stealth way more than like you would expect in this, where it's like, you can totally stealth an area, even if you get caught. Just run away for a little bit, and they'll forget about you.
Yeah, it's
and then go back, and then just keep firing your arrows.
Just keep picking them off. But hey, Gorilla, what's up with how shitty these hitboxes on human enemies are?
There's a lot of times where it's like, I hit them in the head. The arrow is sticking out of their head. Give me my headshot damage.
Yeah, I have had a really bad experience several times in this game where I will fire an arrow and my aim will be slightly off, and so instead of hitting him in the head, I'll hit him in the shoulder or whatever. And while they're reeling, while they're kind of like reacting to being hit with the bow, their shoulder will roll back and they'll kind of stagger forward. I can load another shot and fire, and that arrow will pass right through them because they are still in their damage taken animation, where I guess they're just invincible at that point or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's bullshit.
You do run into like some like, why did that miss moments, especially when you think you would have gotten a headshot and you're like, okay, well, I need to finish them off now, and you're trying to fire arrows and they're not connecting.
Yeah, they're just not hitting because that hitbox is so fucking wonky on human enemies. So that's my other big complaint for Horizon that I really need in Horizon 2 is, can we please tweak these human enemies hitboxes and maybe their AI a little bit? They're not very smart. I mean, that's fine because not every single fight in this game needs to be a fucking hair-ripping challenge. And that's what that's really what the machines are for. The human enemies are there just as kind of distractions, which I guess is fine. Not every single fight needs to be life or death. Sometimes it feels good to just be the badass murder queen of the...
sometimes it just feels good to just fucking assassinate everyone in a room.
Yeah, I mean, that feels fucking great. But, you could tweak it a little bit. And I wouldn't...
Yeah, you can make it a little better.
I wouldn't complain.
These are all things that are just, like, they're not quite problems, but it's like, you'll fix this in the sequel.
Yeah, they're not huge. None of this makes the game unenjoyable, because the game is a lot of fun. Like, the game is a lot of fun to just play, and it plays well. It feels good. The exploration, I mean, really, the exploration is why you're there. And they do a good job of incentivizing exploration, just for the metal flowers and the vantage points alone. That's enough for me. I mean, the vantages especially are a great way to encourage exploration.
Because you get those lore bits, you get, like, a cool shot of the before times.
Mm-hmm. The metal flowers have poetry attached to them.
Yeah.
I think all of that's really beautiful. I've read the metal flowers poetry so much. I'm just like, oh, this is so beautiful. Nature is amazing. That's kind of the problem that a lot of open world games have, is this whole idea of, hey, here's this big world. There's not a lot in it. Sorry.
Yeah.
Horizon has a lot in it. It has a lot to see and find. You'll come over a mesa and, oh, hey, there's a town. That's cool. You'll stumble across bandit camps. You'll find vantages. You'll find, ancient vessels, which are just monks.
Yeah. I love that. That's one of my favorites.
I love it. And, each of those little vessels, finger quotes, has a logo for a company that doesn't exist anymore. I love stuff like that. I love these little things, these tiny details that make exploring worth it. And the Banuk statues. I mean, I like all of it. I just think that's a smart way to kind of incentivize people to go explore the far corners of the map, which is one of the first ththings I did when I got outside of the Norlands. Was like, I wonder how far I can get outside this map before the game sends me back. Not too far, it turns out, but so much fun.
It is, like, just fucking, like, everything about the gameplay is just, it's great and enjoyable.
It's fun. Yeah. I mean, even at the end of the day, it's definitely flawed. Most games are not perfect. But it plays well enough and is enjoyable enough that it's minor problems, you can excuse them, because at the end of the day, you're still having a damn blast. You're tearing off enemy parts, and that's making them move slower, and you're figuring out weak points. You have that great moment where sometimes you've been taking shots at a fucking Ravager's gun, and there's that moment where it finally explodes and goes flying off, and you're like, yes! Now I don't have to worry about that thing shooting at me anymore. Stuff like that. Those are great moments.
So good.
The moment when you finally make a Glint Hawk's chill water pouch explode, and it falls to the ground.
Best.
Oh, it's so satisfying. Moments like that are why you play the game. Like, the first time I realized I could do that to Glint Hawks, I was like, I am sold on this game. Oh my god.
Yeah. That blowing up a Glint Hawk's pouch is, like, the best moment.
Because it's a good teaching moment to show your player, like, if you are strategic with where you are shooting on these enemies, you can make a huge change in battle. And a Glint Hawk is a really good way to show that. If you can turn a Glint Hawk in front of one of the most annoying ass enemies into the game into a fucking cakewalk.
Yeah, once you can figure out how to do that effectively, they're nothing.
They're nothing. At that point, Glint Hawks they're a walk in the park. You're like, 20 Glint Hawks, bring it on. I can take on all of you without even batting an eyelash. It's great. That is how your games should be teaching you how to do things. To give you an example, to just show, like, hey, this is why your focus illuminates weak points in yellow if you scan a machine. Those are the places you should be concentrating your fire instead of just shooting arrows randomly, because that won't do anything. It's amazing. It's so smart. Oh, it's so good. Thank you, Horizon. I love it.
It's so much fun. Like, I cannot wait to see what they improve on in the sequel.
And I can't wait for the stuff in the DLC. Are you kidding me? Oh my god. I'm so excited for the DLC just because it's been a while and I'm glad they've been working on the DLC for, if they've actually put some effort into it. Hopefully. We'll see. Mm-hmm. If it's not, hopefully it's not just like, monster trials. Hopefully there's some plot as well. The trailer made it sound like there's plot, so, give me more plot. I love plot in this game. That's a good segue.
Do you want to shift it to how this game is, like, the best post-apocalyptic story ever?
Yeah, hey, we went a whole hour without any spoilers, but now we're in spoiler territory, so if you haven't actually played Horizon, turn the game off, or turn this off, go play the game. Yeah.
So, the only complaint I have about the story right now, I just want to get this out of the way right now, because the rest of it's great, is that I would have liked a much longer time before learning this is actually Earth.
Yeah, I feel that.
Like, the way they set this up, treated it like this could be any sort of, like, world, Mm-hmm. Like, the first trailer, like, had no indication that we're on Earth. Like, they could have just been any sort of random magical world or, sci-fi whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, I would have, like, you as a player don't find out you're on planet Earth until, like, you leave the village.
Yeah.
Then that would have been, like, really cool to me.
Yeah.
But
I get that.
That's it. Like, beyond that, like, holy fuck, this story is
it is probably the most chilling post-apocalypse.
Mm-hmm.
That it's probably of all of, like, the apocalypse stories that media have been presenting us with in the last 10, 15 years. It's probably, one, it feels a little too prescient, like, Gorilla, do you know something we don't?
Right.
Makes you feel a little nervous, like, you read about all the tech and stuff, and then you read about, like, the actual tech that's, like, being made in the world right now, and you kind of go, like,
You're like, maybe we should stop kicking those dog robots.
Hey, can somebody please tell Boston Dynamics to stop hitting the robots? Because clearly we're pissing them off. Stop kicking Big Dog. He's a nice dog, Boston Dynamics.
You look at Big Dog, and then you, like, look at a screenshot of a sawtooth, and you're like,
no! Be nice to Big Dog, Boston Dynamics! Otherwise it's coming for you in the future! But it is such a good... kind of like when you first realize what is happening, like when you're in Maker's End and you're reading kind of what happened, I got a really bad sinking feeling. I was just... the more and more I hear from the audio logs and stuff like that, the more the holograms played, you just get this major sinking feeling of just, oh god, this was the worst possible kind of apocalypse. This is...
Well...
Yeah.
We feel like we're kind of like getting desensitized to post-apocalypses in media, where it's like, they're really treated more as just like a way to justify you doing whatever you want and introducing enemies, but still having, like, the scraps of a civilization.
Yeah.
Like Fallout or The Last of Us or something like that, where it's like, you are justified in murdering all these guys now because there's no law. There's no, like, society left.
Right.
And so, like, it's used to, like, just create an environment. Whereas what Horizon does with it is really, like, brings it back by saying, like, well, you don't get to survive sometimes.
Yeah, no, that's kind of the most jarring part of Horizon's apocalypse, is that there was no group of plucky survivors building a city out of, the remains of Fenway Park. There is no New Vegas Strip. There's no Joel and Ellie,
Yeah, there's no door opening and the survivor standing out into a barren wasteland.
Right.
There wasn't that. You don't get that in this game.
Because everyone died.
Yeah,
I mean, everyone.
there was nothing left.
I mean, there are no people, there were no animals and no planet, there was no biosphere, and the oceans had turned toxic. There was literally not a single thing left in the world when the robots were done with it. This is not like some post-apocalyptic 1950s, oh, nuclear radiation made these ants giant. It is the worst case scenario for an apocalypse situation, you know?
Because when you first start hearing about, like, how did they survive, you're like, you know, and they're like, you first get the idea of, like, okay, well, there's no going back. And you get that scene where, like, Elizabeth first says, like, I have an idea, and Pharaoh's like, this is fucking insane.
Yeah.
Like, he's like, this is the worst thing I've ever heard in my life. And you're like, what could be that bad? Was it clone the humans and hide them away? Was it, like, for a while, I thought, is this all an AI? Because, like,
yeah, like a simulation?
Are we just data now, and the world is just a civilization in a computer somewhere?
Right.
Like, did they freeze everyone? What?
But then
what could Zero Dawn be that would make him freak out?
Then you think, like... Because the biggest thing that kind of stands out in this game is that there is no indication of the old world at all. Nobody even knows what happened to the old ones. And if that's the case, then, like, if there were survivors, some of that information should have been passed on, even if it was just in the form of, like, old folk legends and stuff, you know?
Yeah.
It's been 1,000 years, but you and I know what happened to the Romans. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like, we get info.
Stories get passed down, and people keep track of that thing, even if every computer in the world was destroyed and blah blah blah. Well,
word of mouth still exists. And we can still tell people. You expected it to get, like, distorted at some point. That's my theory, was that, like, it just got distorted and passed on as, legend, and that was about it.
But no, it is so much worse. It is literally that there is nothing left of anybody. There is nobody. There's no record of human achievement. There is no... All that's left are some old rusty ruins, and that is it. There is no... Like, all of the buildings are gone. The metal ring is the remains of an old football stadium.
And you never get an idea that it actually is a football stadium until you kind of, like, give it one good sweep around, and you recognize just the most basic shape of it.
Yeah, you're like, this is a big circular arena in the middle of a major population center that didn't seem to have a root. Oh, it's a football stadium, you know? Like, and then, of course, you can find the vantage that actually lets you see what it used to look like, and you're like, oh. But, like... I don't know. I've been, like, chewing on this idea of this apocalypse since I finished the game, and since I kind of got the revelation of what Zero Dawn was and what the Pharaoh Swarm was. And it is so... It's just really chilling. The more you think about it, the more you're like, there was no... I mean, everybody died.
Because, like, again, like, you get, like, you have your preconceptions of what a post-apocalyptic setting is, and you're like, oh, the robots wiped out nearly everyone, and we had to hide from the robots, you know?
Right.
The machines are still running around, and they don't need food or anything. They went haywire. They started shooting people. We hid in bunkers, and then eventually we came out, where, because you explore all these ruins, and it's like, oh, okay, something, happened, and we hid, and then we got to come out, after a certain amount of time and try again. But no, it was... The idea of... You get that one log where it's like, they wiped out a species of dolphin. Yeah. And you're like, oh, like, that's your first indication that there's really something wrong here.
It's that, I mean, to me, what kind of really chills me the most is because of the way Guerrilla told this story. They said, here's how it started. The Pharaoh Swarm went AWOL, and they decided to do their own thing. Okay. Well, here is Elizabeth saying, this is my plan for Zero Dawn, but the game doesn't tell you what Zero Dawn is yet. So then you go to the mask with the grave thing. I can't remember what it's called right now.
Like the grave zone or something. I can't remember what it's called either. Yeah,
but
like the grave horde, I think.
Yeah, the grave horde. You go to the grave horde, and you see all of the soldiers who fought against the Pharaoh Swarm. Starship Trooper style in Operation Enduring Victory, and they're all badasses, and they're all, Americans going like, yeehaw, and all this shit, And you're like, yeah, these are some plucky, badass American soldier types, and they're gonna fuck these robots up, and then they're gonna hide out in this bunker, and everything is gonna be okay. No,
they're dead.
No, they're all dead. They all eventually died. Eventually, everybody in the world was basically thrown into a meat grinder to give Zero Dawn a little bit more time. The entire world was basically and there was no other option. There was no other choice. There was no winning against the Pharaoh Swarm. It was the only option was literally feed the entire world to these robots. And at that point, that was like 11 billion people. And you just fed all of them into a meat grinder to give a group of 70 scientists enough time to reboot existence as we know it. That is it's so terrifying to me. If you think about it.
It is, just the scope of, the fact that, you get that video where it's whatever you've been told, this is not a super weapon. That's a lie.
Yeah.
There's no hope. There's no winning.
There's no winning. There's no hope. Yeah. That's what it was that there's no hope. You get these... you get the letter, the audio logs from some soldier's wife, and then you just think, that woman was probably thinking, Zero Dawn will give us all a chance and a future.
Yeah.
And, no, it didn't. It gave some other people a future and a chance, but not you. And all of you are basically just sacrifices, and it's super fucked up.
There's no way of pulling it back. You have to start over.
Yeah, there's no surviving at all. There's no changing it. It's insane. Yeah, it's creepy. It's creepy.
And it's even to the point where Fallout is bad. The post total nuclear war, all the bombs going off and everything being wiped out within hours, Mm-hmm. That's always that's rough. That's rough.
Yeah.
But Horizon even goes a step further than that, where it's you can hide out in the bunker, in the Elysium bunker. Mm-hmm. But we're going to sterilize you, and you will just stay there with that population until you dwindle.
And
last one out. Yeah, last one out, turn the lights off.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so, you had to sterilize everybody, and it's such a cold rationalism. I mean, it makes sense. You can't...
Yeah.
If everybody is making babies, then the food runs out before the people run out, So then everybody who's trapped underground with the Pharaoh Swarm breathing down their necks, they all would just starve to death, which is even worse than, everybody who's down there dying slowly of old age. Instead, I really hope in 2 we can find Elysium. I want to know the stories of the people.
Yeah. That'll be a whole bunch of audio logs that I am looking forward to listening to.
And then crying over, because boy, I did a lot of crying in this game.
Well, and it's great because, you get you get the one recording of the scientist on part of the Zero Dawn team. Mm-hmm. I can't remember his name, but, he's the kind of the conspiracy nut.
Yeah.
And he's before he watches the video, he's yeah, I know it's a space station. It's not gonna work. Space stations are stupid. They can't sustain life. Mm-hmm. And he's whatever, show me your dumb space station plans, I know what it is. Yeah. And then you get the recording after the video, and he's just
dumbfounded?
He's dumbfounding and raving at how that's even worse,
Yeah. Yeah. It's so heavy. It's just a awful gut-punchy moment of realizing just how fucked everybody was. And in the middle of all of this, in the heart of all of this, is the fucking shining light of just a character who, the more and more I think about her, the more and more I am endeared to her, the more every time she showed up in a log, I was delighted. I love Elizabeth Sobek and Aloy. Boy,
like, without a doubt, this is not Aloy's story. Like, this game is not Aloy's story. This is Elizabeth's story that's being told to Aloy.
Yeah, exactly. It's just the story of. I mean, it is not a coincidence that the end game is triggered after you find out how Elizabeth died. You know, you go to Gaia Prime, you find out how she died, and the next mission after Gaia Prime is the final end game mission. You know? Mm-hmm. It is no coincidence, because it is a story about Elizabeth and what she did and how she figured out, and it's a story about Aloy basically meeting her mother.
Yeah, it is about Aloy proving herself as a Nora Brave.
Yeah.
And then after you get the scene where she talks to the All-Mother, it stops being her story and it starts being Elizabeth Sobek's story.
Yeah, for sure. Like, and it's just so great. It's so amazing to just, you know, Elizabeth is such a interesting character because she's kind of cold, but she still somehow seems to have, like, this love in her heart for everything, even when, you know, her boss is an idiot who just, you know, kind of ended the world. Or
it's all his fault. Like, it's
all
completely
Ted Farrow's
fault. Yeah.
Literally all of it is Ted Farrow's fault. And you know, it's just so, Aloy and Elizabeth are both so, they have a lot of good depth going on. A lot of, you know, I think some of the other characters in the game could have probably stood to be fleshed out more. Like, I wish that, I wish, like, Talana and Erend and them had gotten more quests, because I love them.
Like, I wrote in the notes, there are a ton of really cool characters in this game. Mm-hmm. But none of them, like, have even anything close to the depth of Aloy and Elizabeth.
No.
Like,
and I wish...
If I could give this, like, any fault, it's that the secondary characters are quest givers, and they do not do a ton else.
Yeah, no. It's kind of like the only one who gets any real... I mean, the only one who gets any real significant development is Erend.
Yeah.
And that's because Erend is basically with you from the start of the game till the end of the game. Which is great. I mean, I love Erend. Erend is a great character. But I wish we had gotten a few more everybody who is, like, your ally in the game, that you kind of meet at the end of the game when, like, the final quests are triggering. I wished a lot of them, like, Vinasha and them had gotten a few more quests, you know? Like,
or just tie them to the main quest a little bit more. Or
just a chance to sit around and talk to them more as just, like, as, like, Aloy's friend and not as, like... a quest giver, you know?
I don't know if I do or do not want a Fallout system where you can bring a teammate with you to places.
I don't know! I love them all so much, I wish you could, but at the same time, it's kind of the whole point of the game is that you're, like, the lone hunter, tracker character, and that's what makes Aloy such a badass.
Yeah, you know, like, part of the idea is that, like, you are doing all this yourself, you know, stuff, but, like, it would have been great to develop these characters a little bit more, because considering how good the Horizon team is at writing, like, I wanted, again, it boils back to, like, the combat thing, where it's like, your combat is really good, I want more of it!
Yeah, like, give me more of the story of these characters and of this world, just give me more of everything. Can I just have more Horizon, please?
Yeah.
That's really all I'm asking, is I just really want more Horizon, Gorilla. It's a really good game. But I guess at the same time, I get it, because the main story... You don't want to spread yourself too thin writing stuff for all of these characters when it is the beginning of a franchise, you know? Because if you had spent all this time writing and then the game had bombed, it would have been like, oh, well, okay. But the game didn't bomb. So, I think it was a pretty smart decision to focus more on Aloy and Elizabeth, because they are the main characters. It is, like, their story. It's about Aloy and her mother and her father, and it's about the person Elizabeth was and the world she left behind, and kind of her hopes and dreams, and the fact that she is the basically, between her and Aloy, the savior of the world. They are, I told you, we were talking about this the other day, just in text messages and stuff, that Horizon is a fantasy game.
This is not a science fiction game. This is a fantasy game about a chosen one, selected by the Ancient Ones.
Yeah, a chosen one created by a goddess.
Yeah, chosen to save the world from an unstoppable plague.
Yeah, and a dark god, literally named after the god of the underworld and the old world.
Yeah.
I mean, because, there's this concept of, and I can't remember the name of the writer who proposed it to begin with, but the idea of technology so advanced that at this point it is indistinguishable from magic.
Yeah.
To the people of the world of Horizon, the technology that Gaia possesses is so advanced it is basically magic. It makes life from nothing. It created the machines. Gaia is, for all intents and purposes, for what she did and the fact that she stopped the Pharaoh Swarm, the fact that she was in charge of the Eleuthia cradles, she made life. So for all intents and purposes, yes, Gaia is an actual god at that point. I mean...
Yeah. Like, straight up.
Like an actual legitimate god. She just so happens to exist in a computer mainframe. It is the old-fashioned idea of gods from, like, the Greeks and Romans, where it's a flawed god that you can kill, but Gaia is literally God at that point. She is the All-Mother, Like, straight up, she is legitimately the most earnest form of she is a Deus Ex Machina. Yeah, she's God in the machine, and it... fortunately, it's not like a cop-out, because by the time you can actually encounter Gaia, she has been dead, finger quotes, for 20 years.
And this game makes it a point to, like, really address the fucking scope that went into developing her.
Yeah. The fact that it took, months and, 18 months of constant around-the-clock work to...
And
Go ahead.
One of the logs that really stands out to me is the one where he's talking about how he wasn't there for another character's death.
Yeah.
Because he chose to download the gene code for some Birds of Paradise.
Oh yeah, and then they ended up losing the gene code for the Birds of Paradise anyways.
Yeah. And so it's like, sad. Yeah. This idea of like, yeah, we have to make a goddess who can, reboot the world. And like, even with all this effort, they didn't get everything anyway.
I mean, yeah, because they ran out of time. At the end of the day, there just wasn't enough time because the literal apocalypse and the end of everything was breathing down their neck. And they did the best they could, and they still managed to make a god. They built a god in a computer frame. And then she, every human on Earth died, which is, again, just incredibly terrifying to me. Every single human on Earth died, and then she got to work cracking the code to put the Pharaoh Swarm to sleep, and then she got to work terraforming the world. She remade civilization, or nature as we know it. Mm-hmm. And I just think at that point, that's the exact moment Horizon turns into a fantasy game, is when when you realize that this is a world with a pantheon of gods, because now that all of Gaia's subordinate functions are now their own AIs acting independently of Gaia. That means there is a pantheon of gods. There is the one, god above all of them. There's a chosen one. There is technology that looks like magic, because the Pharaoh Swarm, the Deathbringers and stuff, and the Corruptors can eat biomass the way that, they can do. There are giant monsters frozen on top of mountains that, basically dragons that have been slain, and they're huge, incredible skeletons are on the tops of mountains now. That kind of thing. I mean, holy shit, right?
You know, like, in hindsight, I'm surprised there is not a dragon robot to fight.
You know? But I mean, they're basically, the fucking Thunderjaws are dinosaurs.
Yeah,
so
but
that
I mean, like,
counts.
that would have, like, completed the fantasy aspect where it's like,
I know,
here's
right?
a dragon.
Yeah, the only thing I really wanted to see was to see the giant, they call them the Metal Devils, the Noradu. I want to see one of those move.
Oh boy, that would be terrifying though.
That'd be terrifying, right? So
maybe
scary.
in the sequel, we'll get to fight one.
I don't even know how you'd go about fighting one. That's the only thing. I'm just like, that thing is as big as a mountain. You can't fight that. But at the same time, I really want to see it move, you know? Like, I kept expecting the one on top of, like the Grave Horde or the one on top of All Mother Mountain. I kept expecting it to move at some point. And I was like, stay where you fucking are. Don't come near me. You know? Mm-hmm. But God, it's just... I love this world. I am so impressed with the scope of thought that's been put into it, you know? It's
just like...
Did I lose you?
No, I'm still here. I'm trying to find my words.
It's
like,
okay.
There were so many, like... I've seen a lot of heroic sacrifices in my day.
No.
Fuck. I don't think I've ever been hit as hard by one as Elizabeth's.
Because it's so... Any other heroic sacrifice in any other piece of media, it's a big deal. It's I will go out and I will walk out into the fire and close the door, and it's like this moment of, no, Elizabeth, don't do it, you know, whatever. That kind of thing. Where they try to talk him down for a minute, it's like, no, I have to go. But, like, by the time... Elizabeth tells everybody, the way she tells people, hey, I'm dead, is she pops up in a hollow screen and she goes, it's done. And you're like, what? What do you mean it's done? Oh no!
Yeah.
No!
I always think that, like, the more subdued tragedy like that is way more effective than, like, a really overblown moment.
It's so punchy and so...
Yeah.
Because it was such a good... It boiled down her character so perfectly. It was such an Elizabeth way to go out. To just be like, oh, it's done. And I don't really want to stick around, you know, locked in a bunker for the rest of my life anyways. So I'm going to leave it all to you guys. And it's just it was, you know, everything we know about this character at this point. We've read all of her emails. We've read her journals. We've heard her audio logs. We've heard her conversations with Pharaoh. Stuff like that. We have such a good idea of who Elizabeth is that it is such an Elizabeth thing to do. Mm-hmm. And because of that, because it's so in her character, it's moving. It's such an emotional thing for something so simple. It
was everything for Gaia.
Yeah,
everything for Zero Dawn.
She loved Gaia, and she was so excited when Gaia expressed, you know, grief about doing... Oh, what a moment where she's like, no! You know, Gaia's like, I feel impossibly sad when I hear about the last great extinction event. You know, it breaks Gaia's heart. And she's like, is that normal? And then, you know, Elizabeth is like, no, that's really good. We want that.
Because they didn't need a robot to put the world back together. They needed it to feel. They needed it to have empathy.
And to love people. Because otherwise, if Gaia didn't love the world she made, she'd never have brought Aloy around. Yeah.
Like, I'm also just, like, so glad we got an AI who didn't go berserk.
Right?
You know?
Like, yeah, her subordinate function, at least one of them. Maybe two of them, because Hephaestus is also kind of, like, you know, making the robots violent. But Gaia herself, like, the god, you know, the mother god of the new world, is exactly the way she should be. She's, you know, confident and amazing, and I think her face is modeled after Gina Torres.
Which would be awesome.
I think that's true. I think that's her voice actor too, but I'm not sure. Either way, she looks like, what's her face from Firefly, whose name I can't remember. Thank you, Zoe. She looks like her, so that's kind of cool. But, like, you know, she loves and she feels, and she's what you want the kind of ruling god of the new world to be, where she's deeply compassionate and she sees that, everything that Elizabeth created is about to be destroyed, so she finds a way to make it not happen, to save it, and to the fact that even when she's like, oh, there's no way you can possibly see this message, and then she's like, no, I know Elizabeth Sobeck, and I know what kind of person she is, and I know that her clone will be the same way. She'll be that same kind of level of determined, so I have faith in you, so I'm still going to leave this message, and I'm still going to hope that you can make this happen. That's beautiful!
It is!
It's beautiful! I was just a big gross pile of tears through a lot of the end parts of these games, because I had just become so emotionally involved with Aloy and Elizabeth. And, I think the level of their characterization was so well done, and my little blackened heart.
I really, really hope that, we get more interaction between Gaia and Aloy in the sequel.
Oh my god, please.
Because that was a plot hook that was left open, which is, Silence mentions, hey, you need to reboot Gaia, but you can't until Hades is dealt with.
Right.
Well, we've dealt with Hades.
So can we rebuild Gaia now? Can we?
Yeah.
I want Aloy and Gaia to have a conversation and have that moment.
I want Gaia to be the new voice in Aloy's focus.
Because fucking Silence can't be trusted.
Yeah. Well, here's what I'm thinking of. The comparison I can draw is the difference between Zone of the Enders 1 and Zone of the Enders 2, which is that the reason why you have all of these gameplay mechanics unlocked in Zone of the Enders 2, despite it being the same mech, is that in the first game, it's in the hands of a kid, and in the second game, it's in the hands of an experienced pilot.
Right.
And so the opposite would be a good explanation as to why Aloy can scan so many more things and why the Focus has more abilities, is because in the first game, it's Aloy messing with it as a completely inexperienced person. In the sequel, she has a goddess AI helping her do things.
Right. And yeah, that would be amazing. Plus, again, Gaia is infinitely more trustworthy than good old-fashioned fucking Silence, you motherfucker. How's that fucking stinger after the credits? What are you up to, asshole?
That is some shit.
That's some Marvel shit right there, where they're like, we're gonna set up for a sequel, you know? Thanks guys, now you've got me just dying for more. It worked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It worked.
That was good. It worked.
Bastards. You bastards.
I was really afraid the stinger would be the dumbass guys up in the mountain pull the spear out.
Oh my god.
And Hades wakes up.
Yeah, and then escapes like that. No, you motherfuckers!
Yeah, and I'm like, Ava, did you not think to put a sign up? Hey, don't touch. Don't touch this thing. Don't.
Yeah, put some fucking guards around it who are no, get away.
A rope.
Put it under a big heavy box. I don't know, something.
Yeah, so I'm glad that wasn't it, but still, holy shit.
Silence, what the fuck are you up to, buddy? Come on. Where's my sequel? I know it's years away, but I'm already dying here, people. But yeah.
I really hope that, the sequel also plays into the whole Apollo thing.
Yeah.
Because
that's just too sad.
I think that was more heartbreaking than losing the entire planet.
Mm-hmm.
Because, that whole thing is, without that, think of how much is lost forever.
I know.
With that.
It's so unbearably sad.
The end of the world was terrible, yes, but, the promise of having all of these subroutines able to repopulate the planet and having Apollo meant that you would be able to still have a record of everything.
Mm-hmm.
And the idea of officially losing that is such a gut punch. And it also seems like a huge plot thing that could be developed, which is this ancient this new civilization, this new world finding the information of the old world for the first time after 700 years.
Yeah. That I have such, like, weird feelings. Like, obviously you don't want all of the knowledge in medicine and stuff like that to go away. But, like, Ted Farrow has never done anything right in his entire life, but there was, like, one kind of point in my head where I went, like, he might have kind of a point. Where it's like, hey, maybe we shouldn't teach people how to make those robots anymore, because that's how we killed ourselves in the first place. And I know that's kind of like a Luddite way of thinking, but, you know, it's kind of scary to be like, hey, yeah, let's make all of the exact same mistakes all over again and kill ourselves again. I don't know. But at the same time, I would like to see some of Apollo recovered. But, because God forbid I never give Ted Farrow any credit ever.
Yeah. Now, I can understand that line of process, like the line of thought, but also consider they have the ultimate reason to not do that. The reason being they had to make Gaia in the first place.
True.
It's like, here's the instructions to make these robots. You know why you have these instructions? Because we had to put them in this AI.
Because we killed ourselves in the first place. Yeah. But I would like to see at least some of Apollo
I would like
recovered.
to see some of it recovered, because, you know, as much as I like give game credit where it's like they didn't lean too heavily on the old world, and like they made it a point where, like, no, it's gone, like there's no sign of it around. I do love that there's a term for it. I can't remember the term of it, where it's discovering common things and like describing them out of their normal context to illustrate how weird they are.
Oh, I bet I do know that term.
There's a term for it, and I can't remember it right now. But it's like, you know, where you're like, oh, then I stuck a plastic tube into this liquid, and I inhaled. I wrapped my lips around it and inhaled.
Yeah. I don't know what that would be called. I know it has a term, but I can't think of it right now. But yeah, it would be cool to have like a quest in 2 be about recovering parts of Apollo. You know.
Yeah.
What wasn't, you know, the fragments that somehow managed to avoid being deleted by Pharaoh, who had never done anything right in his entire life.
Like I did see something that was like really poignant, and I liked that, which is that despite Apollo being deleted and being inaccessible like that, Gaia herself sought to preserve just the smallest fraction of it by putting poems in the metal flowers.
Oh, that's true. Oh no, that's so heartbreaking. Because those are real poems. Like, those are actual poems written by actual poets in the real world. That's so beautiful.
Yeah,
oh, no.
Like, she did not decide to just let the metal flowers populate the planet with, like, you know, what is the word? What would be the word for, like, bringing the foliage back, or the flora back? Like,
I don't.
I'm sure there's a term for it, but, you know,
I can't think of it right now. I guess, you know, reseed, you know?
Yeah, something like that. But, like, you know,
but I get what you mean.
Revive the world like that, and then she didn't see fit to just leave the metal flowers to do that. She put, you know, art in them. Yeah.
Oh, that's so beautiful.
That's
beautiful.
I just want some of it, because I want fucking, you know what I want in this game? I want Aloy to have her own show me dancing scene from WALL-E.
Yes.
You know?
Yes, exactly. I do want to see more of that.
A character like Aloy, who when she first got her focus spent, which, like, that montage early on where it shows her just, like, doing everything with it. And
learning how to use it,
staying up late at night to learn how it works. And a girl who's that curious and brave and, like, ready to learn, like, getting her, with her knowing her connection to the old world, and knowing, you know, of Elizabeth and how they're connected, the idea of her actually getting knowledge of the old world, things that Elizabeth would have experienced herself, like, that feels like something she needs to have.
Oh, I think so too. I think to kind of, because again, to her, and the end of the game really, you know, tells you this is the truth. To her, Elizabeth is her mother. It's the mother she's always been looking for. So to her, having a little piece of the world her mother existed in would be a big deal to her. You know, that would be an important thing to. Yeah. The only thing I feel like Horizon's main quest was lacking, and God help me, please let this be in 2 or the Frozen North or something. I was really expecting some kind of holodeck sequence where you could walk around and see part of the old world.
You know, now that you mention that, yeah, I can feel that.
It doesn't need to be a big elaborate thing, but I was really hoping like one little segment where Aloy could walk around like in her tribal clothes in a holographic simulation of the old world. You
get like just a small fraction of that with the Vantages. Mm-hmm. But like they could have like given us like a real fleshed out hologram.
Yeah, just something to kind of show, just to have Aloy interacting or having the old world around her so that she is the fish out of water, she is the odd thing instead of the other way around where all of this tech is the odd thing. It would have been really cool. You know, maybe they'll do that in a sequel or something, because I would really like to see the old world functioning as it actually was. Is really cool to me.
What I really, really like about this is that you kind of get it a lot when you have, like, legacy clones like that, where in fiction, the idea is that, like, no, you're not your clone, you're not the original, you're your own person kind of thing. And I really do like that Aloy embraced that she was connected to Elizabeth Sobek.
Yeah, I like that she didn't try to deny it, and to her, it was just that, well, she's my mother. It's not that, you know, I am her. She's my mother, and we share traits. We share likes and dislikes. We have similar personalities because we take on some of our personalities we inherit from our parents.
When she first found it out, like, she had that moment of denial where she, like, you know, was disbelieved that she was just created for this purpose. But then when you progress through the game and you learn more, like, she really empathized with Elizabeth, and, like, she would always comment on anything Elizabeth did in, like, the holograms and stuff.
Mm-hmm. And she really held her in the highest of regards and respected her and thought that Elizabeth was amazing. Like, the way she just willingly chose to die for this world she made without even any kind of hesitation. You know, that was such a, you know, for her, that was a big moving moment. And it was proof that, you know, she was Elizabeth's daughter. And that was that was a big deal for her, and it's so beautiful. I want more.
So just as a final note, we probably should talk about, like, the ending cutscene and how that was it was like that last ending scene was such an indulgence.
I know, because it's like totally not possible, but
it's like, guys, come on, her town sign is still intact and her body's right.
But
like,
shut up, it's fine.
Really? But it's like I can't complain because I can't see the cutscene too well because I'm crying too hard.
I know. I can't see the scene through my tears. It's fine. Yeah, I turned again into a big gross, teary, crying mess the whole time.
Yeah.
It was
then
horrible.
She gets the little globe charm.
Oh, and no!
It pans out.
Flowers.
Yeah,
like
and the flowers.
flowers.
And it's like, guys, come on. We get it, but also, like, you can have this
fine.
one.
Let me have this moment. And it was a moment. Because, like, as soon as it kind of, like, you know, it shows the Sobek Ranch, and you're just like, oh no, she made it home! It's horrible. It's pathetic. I mean, it was disgusting how much I was crying. The part when Elizabeth died and the ending, I was just a big old gross pile of tears. It was so pathetic. It was so pathetic. But it's fine because I loved it. I love Horizon, man.
I will admit, I was also relieved because I was terrified that, like, defeating Hades would result in Aloy having to sacrifice herself just like Elizabeth.
I know!
She would echo Elizabeth's final lines in the recording, that I want to go home.
Yeah.
And I'm like, don't you do it, game! Don't you do it, game!
Don't you kill this girl, game! You leave this girl alone!
I will also say that, like, as far as this particular game ends, outside of the Elizabeth scene at the very end, like, it's not very remarkable.
No.
Like, it's like, Aloy beat the monster, and you win. It's done.
Yay!
Because again, this isn't Aloy's story.
No, and it's not...
This was Elizabeth's story, and the next game will be more of Aloy's story.
Right, and but that's fine. It's like she saved the world, but she was also kind of already changing the world as she went. It's not like we needed to see the state the world was left in after defeating Hades. We had already kind of changed the world by, through side quests and stuff, because you better have been doing those side quests, fellow listeners, because the best part is definitely having all of your friends to talk to before the final battle, which is great.
So it's just like, again, it really drives home that they are officially planning on continuing this story and doing more with it. And later games will definitely have higher stakes with Aloy and a lot more growth for her. But this was your introduction game, and they wanted to set up the world, and they did...
It was your origin story. That's what it was.
They did a stellar job of setting up this kind of world.
And by giving Gaia a bunch of different subordinate functions, they have functionally set themselves up for as many goddamn sequels as they like, and I will play all of them. So hey, thanks Guerrilla Games. You did good. You done good, Guerrilla Games.
I'm looking forward to whatever subtitles they give to the After Horizon, because this is Horizon Zero Dawn. The sequel will not be Horizon Zero Dawn 2.
No,
it'll be Horizon : something.
Yeah, of course. So we'll see. For now, I'm just really excited for the Frozen North.
Yep.
And
which we don't have a release date for, so I can't really say anything like, oh boy, I can't wait till whatever, because
guys.
Yeah, there's nothing out for it.
It'd be nice if we could get a fucking release date, but I guess we'll just have to wait.
Yeah.
But for now, we've almost talked 2 hours again, so we should probably wrap this up. Whoops.
So thanks to Visitor for use of our background music, link to their work in the description. We are on Twitter at The Gorge Podcast. We have an email account if you want to talk to us about Horizon. You can email us at thegorgepodcast@gmail.com. Very soon, I will be posting the recordings of the live stream of Kingdom Hearts 1 that I did with Mary Rose of Dashing Nerds. Okay. I'm going to put that on our... Because we have a Gmail account, it means we have a YouTube account as well.
Oh, good.
One of the only benefits of YouTube being bought up by Google is that. So I'll post a link to that on our Twitter and on my Tumblr and all that, and so you can see it. I don't know when we're going to be streaming next because our schedules are... We have to line up schedules for that. Mm-hmm. But we will continue doing that in the future. I had a lot of fun doing it. So... yeah, well, I'll keep you guys in touch with that. Sarah, tell us about your other podcast.
Hey, I have another podcast. It's an LGBT RPG live play podcast called Big Gay Nerds, where me and a bunch of other LGBT friends sit around, we play tabletop games, we cycle through different games every month or so, give or take. Right now, we are about to start a game of Blades in the Dark, which is a fantastic system based off of stuff like the Thief franchise and Dishonored. It's basically a Dishonored tabletop game, and I am really excited to play it. We're actually playing it tomorrow on Saturday. You should tune in. We are on SoundCloud at Big Gay Nerds. We're on Tumblr at Big Gay Nerds. We are on Twitter at BGN Podcast or something like that. We'll link to it in the description. And that's it. You should listen to us. Thanks.
Okay, I think that'll do it for us. This one's really easy. Fuck Pharaoh.
Fuck Silence. How's that, too?
Fuck Silence, too.
We didn't talk enough about that, but what a fucking asshole. What are you up to, douchebag? And fuck Pharaoh. Good night, everyone.
Yeah, good night.